The midterm race is heating up as Graham Platner and Janet Mills fight it out in Maine. 2026 is shaping up to be one of the most important election years in the history of our country. Order our new book, join our Substack, shop our merch, and more by clicking here. https://linktr.ee/IHIP podcast. The midterm race in Maine is rapidly transforming into one of the most closely watched political battles in the country, as Graham Platner and Janet Mills emerge as opposing forces in a contest defined by stark contrasts, rising intensity, and an electorate that feels pulled in two very different directions. What once looked like a predictable cycle has turned volatile, energized by national pressures, local frustrations, and a growing sense that Maine's political future is very much up for grabs. At the center of the storm stands Janet Mills, a familiar figure whose tenure has made her both a stabilizing presence to supporters and a lightning rod for critics. Her leadership style, grounded in experience and institutional knowledge, appeals to voters who prioritize continuity and steady governance. For many Mainers, Mills represents familiarity in uncertain times, a known quantity amid national turbulence. Yet that same familiarity has become a vulnerability, as opponents argue that long-standing leadership can drift into complacency. Enter Graham Platner, positioning himself as an alternative shaped by urgency rather than tradition. His campaign has leaned heavily into the language of disruption, accountability, and change. Platner's message resonates with voters who feel unheard, overburdened, or disconnected from decisions made in Augusta. He speaks to economic anxiety, cultural frustration, and the belief that Maine needs a new direction rather than a continuation of the old playbook. The clash between these two visions has turned increasingly personal and pointed. Mills emphasizes experience, warning against what she frames as risky experimentation at a time when stability matters most. Platner counters by portraying experience as a euphemism for stagnation, arguing that Maine cannot afford to move cautiously while families struggle with rising costs, housing pressures, and uncertainty about the future. What makes this race particularly combustible is how closely it mirrors broader national tensions. Issues that once felt distant now land directly on Maine's doorstep. Economic policy, healthcare access, environmental concerns, and the role of government itself are no longer abstract debates. They are lived realities shaping how voters view both candidates. Each rally, interview, and campaign stop becomes a proxy battle for larger ideological struggles playing out across the country. Grassroots energy is building on both sides. Mills draws strength from established networks, institutional support, and voters who value predictability. Platner's momentum is fueled by enthusiasm, social media amplification, and a base eager for confrontation rather than compromise. The result is a race where enthusiasm and turnout may matter as much as policy positions. The tone of the campaign has sharpened as polls tighten and margins narrow. Messaging has grown more aggressive, with each side warning of dire consequences should the other prevail. Supporters are mobilized not just by hope, but by fear of what the opposing vision could mean for Maine's identity and future. This sense of urgency is pushing undecided voters into the spotlight, making them the most courted and pressured group in the race. Rural and urban divides are becoming more pronounced. Coastal communities, inland towns, and working-class regions each hear different promises and different warnings. Mills leans on her record and long-standing relationships, while Platner seeks to tap into feelings of neglect and resentment that have simmered beneath the surface for years. The geography of Maine becomes a map of competing priorities rather than a unified political bloc. Media attention has intensified as the race tightens. Every statement is dissected, every misstep amplified. The narrative shifts daily, sometimes hourly, as campaigns scramble to control momentum. In this environment, perception can matter as much as reality. A single moment can redefine a candidacy, and both camps know it. Behind the scenes, strategists understand what's truly at stake. This race is no longer just about one seat or one term. It's about signaling where Maine stands in a polarized national landscape. A Mills victory would suggest that experience and continuity still hold sway. A Platner win would send a message that frustration and demand for change have reached a breaking point. As Election Day approaches, the tension only grows. Voters are forced to weigh stability against transformation, caution against urgency, familiarity against risk. The margin for error narrows, and every vote feels consequential. The midterm race in Maine has become more than a political contest. It is a reflection of competing anxieties, hopes, and identities colliding in real time. As Graham Platner and Janet Mills fight it out, the outcome will reveal not just who wins office, but what kind of future Maine's voters believe is worth fighting for.